Good evening and welcome everyone. My name is Sulma Arias. I am the Executive Director at People's Action. We are a national network of grassroots organizations with more than 1 million members in 38 states. And tonight, we are what's next. Thank you so much. I am so honored that you chose to spend your evening with us tonight. So thank you for being here. We're here to celebrate you. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos. If you want to follow in Spanish, use the link on your screen, Somos Más. Y si prefiere escucharnos en español, por favor, haga clic a la link que dice Somos Más. Before we get to the program for this evening and to our exciting guest, please take a moment to honor the land and our elders. My home is Wichita, Kansas. This is the traditional land of the Osage, the Wichita and the Sioux people. Please join me to honor those who came before us to this land. I also want to take a minute for us to remember everyone who was touched by the senseless shootings in Colorado Springs, especially our transgender, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and queer communities. We stand with you tonight. Let's take a moment to acknowledge their pain. Thank you, everyone. Now, if you could please, again, thank you for joining us, those who are still coming in. Thank you so much for choosing to spend the next hour or so with us. For those of you coming in, please tell us where you are from. And if you're watching on Facebook, on Twitter, please join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. Follow What's Next, the What's Next linked on your screen. But tonight we are here because we are celebrating. We're celebrating you. We're celebrating all of you who won this election, left it all on the field. This is about us tonight, and we're celebrating you. We defended the promise of democracy. We beat the odds. When the far right spent millions and millions of dollars to win, they lost. Why? Because they don't have what we have, the love and the power of people behind their efforts. We have the hope, the aspirations, the love and the passion for a brighter future and for the promise of America, for an America that can be everything it is meant to be. Hope that will never give up. In this election, our movement politics team worked nonstop to recruit, to elect a people slate candidates who will work with and for communities they represent. That's what we call co-governing. our vision of democracy that works for all of us. And what an exciting night and way to celebrate tonight with our champions and the people that we helped to elect. This is incredible. What a way to celebrate. This is what co-governance looks like. So tonight we're going to celebrate these victories with some of those champions and some of members all down and up the ballot that we helped to elect. Then we will talk more about what we still need to do to build the multiracial democracy this country needs. Because we got a long way to go. Elections are not just about winning. We know that they're not just about winning votes. They're about winning people. They're about winning the hearts of people like you and everything that you did tonight to get us here. Winning people to create real change. So let's get to the incredible, exciting, and inspiring program we have for all of you tonight. Welcome again to tonight and to our live stream. And I'm going to turn it over to our incredible People's Action Deputy Director of Movement Politics, Marta Popadiak. Welcome, Marta. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Sulma. I'm super excited, just like you are, about all of what just happened. You're right, we won big time. And in race after race, we, like everybody, expected losses. The pundits gave us 2% of a chance to win. But guess what? We not only held the line, we saved the Senate, we beat election deniers, we increased the number of people's champions who are going to fight for working people and for working families in the US, the House, and the Senate. We flipped important districts. We won down ballot initiatives, and we won governing majorities in Minnesota and Michigan. So basically, we didn't take no for an answer. We didn't take 2% for an answer. We didn't let anybody tell us that we can't do it. And guess what? We just did it. So I want to take a quick look at how we did that. So, People's Action. Are people on the internet watching me do this right now? Oh, the video's playing, so they can't hear me. People's Action, with our member groups, knocked on 1 million doors, made 2 million calls, sent 500,000 texts in battleground states. Really great numbers, right? But most importantly, we backed these up with real conversations. We held more than 200,000 in-depth conversations with people, with voters. We won over 200 local and state level races across the country that our member groups endorsed and worked in. That's what's changing hearts and minds for the long term, and it is a really key part of our strategy. We call it deep canvassing, and it's a really big part of our secret sauce. We're going to hear a lot more about that later in the program, but first, let's hear from some of our friends. T.O. Byrne.
Deep canvassing.
Deep canvas is actually a weapon of mass connection.
This idea of really listening to people.
This is laying the groundwork for people to not just hear each other, but to move each other with compassion, vulnerability, and love.
So we are taking the time to have meaningful human connection.
It is communicating with working class people about our common humanity.
We go deeper and we have deep conversations of understanding the root of what it means to be a person of color, to be a person in poverty in this moment.
These are transformative conversations, not only for the people we connect with through deep listening and vulnerable sharing, but also for ourselves and our movement. And we know what's at stake.
What we know at the end of the day, what is far more effective.
You remember who the President of the United States is, you're welcome, because we did that.
Deep canvassing really, really works. Sometimes you just need that connection, you need that empathy in order for someone to make a realization. It could really not only change somebody's life, but it could really change the course of where we're headed.
So all of this matters to me really personally. I grew up working poor in an immigrant family in Chicago where we struggled. My mom worked full time cleaning houses, and there still were times where we didn't have gas on or full stomachs. And I did start to believe that it's because other immigrants were taking our jobs or my mom wasn't working hard enough. And people all across the country who are struggling are being tricked into blaming each other for our struggles, just like I was. So these human-to-human conversations really, truly are transforming our world. So now I want to welcome my amazing co-host, Dr. Ashley Strange of our fearless member group, Pennsylvania Stands Up. What's up, Ashley?
Woo! Thank you, Marta. Oh, so good to be with you. Here in Pennsylvania, we are just excited as you, maybe a little more so about these big wins, but I want to tell you about what really matters here, what happened in the states, especially right here in the great state of Pennsylvania. Now, not only did we elect John Fetterman, you're welcome, saving the Senate for the Democrats, but we also won a majority in the PA state legislature for the first time in a generation. Now, for over a decade, transformative progressives like yous and me's, we were the minority faction of the minority party in Pennsylvania. And now we're looking at a future where we are soon going to be the majority faction of the majority party. It feels so great. And PA State House had a bunch of firsts. In the year of our Lord 2022, who can think there's a bunch of firsts, but we had a bunch. Tariq Khan was elected the first Pakistani American to the PA legislature and the first advanced practice nurse. Lancaster, PA had their first Black representative with Izzy Smith Waddell. And in Berks, the only Latina in the PA State House is Johanny Cepeda Fertiz. And as someone who has worked at PA Stands Up since its inception, I can say that this is exactly the kind of power that we have dreamt of building. In our Slack messages, some of our members and staff are saying that this is the first time that they've been in Pennsylvania doing this work, playing on offense and not defense. Now, I don't know everything about sports, but that sounds pretty good to me. Some of them have been working in politics for almost a decade, and we're finally seeing the fruits of our labors. And we work all year round to make a PA that works for all of us. And a lot of that is through that secret sauce, not just the stuff that's just off camera over here, but the secret sauce of deep canvassing that Marta was talking about. And very few people know this, but when I was 12, I invented and developed the very first electric toothbrush. Very few people know that because it is a lie. I thought that I was the first one to create something so mind-blowing and spectacular that it was really going to change the world. But then there was a sharper image catalog in my doctor's office that snapped me back to reality. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other firsts to be had. We're seeing all of these wins, and we're watching our elected officials that actually care about us because they are us. They're addressing my pain with their policies. And these are more than just firsts for us. This makes me feel proud to be a part of something like People's Action as we're working to build long-term trust with voters and keep that progressive wheel spinning. In that vein, I am proud to introduce one of our true champions of movement politics, who's known for a long time why we have to take back state politics from the far right and the wealthy, and a great guy who once waved at me from an elevator in DC, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Welcome.
Well, actually, I'm a wave at you from right here from Zoom land. You know, what a pleasure, what an honor. Wow, I'm just so excited to hear about all of the success. They were predicting a red wave, and it, it just really didn't happen for them, did it? And it's because of that deep canvassing, relationship building, the trust that goes along with it, understanding that elections are not a transaction, they are a relationship. And that is how we were able to do this. And I'm telling you, this red wave, if you were talking 6 months ago, we were toast, man. We were done, pack it up, forget about it, it's over. But you know what? That relationship building is what did it. And I'm telling you, it is important for People's Action to continue to share this success, because the Democratic Party as a whole still is in a transactional mindset. And you know, the only way to get them to change is to prove concept. Can't wait. Can't try to convince them. Just got to do it. And then folks will catch on. And I tell you, you know, we do have an advantage. And I want to say, Ashley, you're right. We have an advantage because what we're trying to do is help people actually do better in their lives. And what the far right is trying to do is to convince some people, no, we don't have any health care or any housing for you. We don't have better wages for you. But we have great ideas on who you need to hate and blame. And you know what? That's pretty much all they got. So look, things have been tough. Let's just say and name that. You know, COVID was tough. There's a lot of, you know, in the state of Minnesota, 13,000 people died from COVID. There's, you know, in a few days, there's going to be some families are going to gather on Thursday and have dinner together and in gratitude for their, you know, their situation. But there will be chairs at that table that are not filled because of this horrible pandemic. And, you know, George Floyd happened in my state right here. Then January 6th, a direct assault on democracy. And then, of course, Dobbs, right? Bam. But the bottom line is what they predicted as a tragic situation. People said, you know what? We're going to turn to each other and we're going to go knock some doors and we're going to go build some relationships and we're going to do everything we can do. And that is how they did it. In my own race, the question really was this: can you lead the prosecution and conviction of 5 police officers and still be reelected? And that was an open question because they spent a lot of money to defeat me. You know, the Police Federation alone spent $570,000. Then the dark money pack spent $1 million, and they were just burning dollars out there because guess what? They lost. Sorry about that. You know, the thing is, the answer to the question is, can a prosecutor who has equal justice under the law and says that, no, you can't murder people just because you used to be a police officer, you will be held accountable like everyone else. You know, the question was posed and the answer was given. Yes, if you really work your ass off. So that's the answer to that question. I would submit to you that, boy, this is the moment we've been waiting for. This is the progressive moment. Let me just say, instead of just trying to marginally hang on to a woman's right to choose in our states, what if we passed the ERA over the whole country? We need to be like, this is the moment for the ERA. Now, right now. Why wait? Absolutely now. In the states and in the country. And we'll just, and they take away, they think they're taking away one right, and then we smash back the other way and take it all back, you know? Because if all we do is claw back up to Roe versus Wade, that's getting back up to zero. Let's get past zero. Let's build on it. You know, we need to confront the economic crisis and name that, you know, what we're looking, they call it inflation. I'm going to give you another word for it: price gouging on a massive scale. These people, on these investor calls, they have been caught saying, oh, there's a war in Ukraine and there's supply chain breaks. Let's say it's that and tack us on an extra 5%. And they did it in gas, food, you name it, everything. We need more price gouging laws all over this country. We need attorneys general who will sue when price gougers rear their ugly head, and it is ugly. Climate. Now's the time to move out big on climate. Now's the time to move out big on climate internationally. You know, and I will say this, Soma, we need to be in conversation, certainly across the hemisphere. You know, it is a moment for our connection with from Argentina to Canada and everywhere in between, where we have a real conversation about climate and how the United States is actually creating climate crisis in Guatemala, El Salvador, and also creating economic crisis, and also, creating all kinds of problems with regard to democracy and other things. We're seeing a global reaction. I mean, look, guys, in Colombia, Gustavo Petro and Francia Marquez were elected. Lula is back. We have progressive leaders in Chile. I'm telling you, Latin America, they got it. They know what's up, man. And we need to join that train. And we need to bridge these gaps of language and understand that we are on one very small hemisphere where we need to be united and in communication. Absolutely, the time is for co-governing. Absolutely, the time is to house everybody. There's not one city represented on this call that doesn't have human beings living in tents. Even in cold-ass Minnesota, people are living in tents. And yet, this idiot, Elon Musk, with his $200 billion, as he's busy destroying what is essentially a public utility at this point. Why should he own it? For what reason? This man was born to wealth because of emerald extraction by Black hands in abusive mines in South Africa, got tons of money from you and me through Tesla. And let me just wrap up by saying, this is the moment to talk about real public safety. All of us were hearing about crime. Who heard about crime in this last election? You couldn't avoid it. Let's have a real conversation about public safety, because people do deserve to be safe, but let's talk about how we get these damn guns off the street and hold the gun manufacturers accountable. Let's talk about how we get the opioid money into the hands of people who can use it to get truly well. Let's do that. And like I said again, and I'll say it again because it's worth saying 25,000 times, time for the Equal Rights Amendment. Let's go Roe plus. Done. Thank you.
Yo, that is, I'll follow you, man. Thank you so much. Like, that's just all of it in a nutshell, isn't it? And like, thank you so much. And the thing that I appreciate about Keith Ellison is like, he's serious about organizing always. And so thank you so much for that. I want to, where am I in my, oh my goodness, we're going to hear about more battleground states. New England is on fire in a very good way. I want to shout out and bring up here Jodi Newell. Here's from Rights and Democracy, a newly elected member of the New Hampshire State Legislature. Pew, 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 pew. Where you at?
I'm right here. Hey, everyone. I am so ridiculously happy to be here right now. And you got me following Keith Ellison. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I can keep up with that, but I will pull from some things that he was just talking about because they resonate everywhere across the country. I'll tell you a little bit about how I came into political activism. And that's because I lost my fiance to overdose. I lost my fiance at the time. He was the father at the time of our 1-year-old, and our second son was born 3 weeks later. And I'll tell you something, I listened to a whole lot of people talk about what they were going to do. I listened to a whole lot of people talk about the overdose crisis, talk about what they were going to do, talk about treatment options, talk about all of these wonderful things. But I came out of this kind of like, fatigue of grief. And I looked around and I thought, everything is getting worse. It's not getting better. All of these people were talking about these things, and it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. All right. So my question at that point was, why is it getting worse? If everybody's paying attention to it now that it hit the suburbs, right? Because come to find out, it's been happening in communities that didn't look like mine for quite a long time before that. So nothing was happening before that, but here I am, and I wake up and I say, why is nothing happening in my community? Why is nothing happening in anybody's community? Why is this getting worse, right? And I look around and I realize that everybody's talking, but who's doing? So at the end of the day, I'm gonna stand up. I'm gonna do something, right? If nobody else is doing something, I'm gonna be that person who's gonna stand up and do something. And so I stood up. And I put myself out there as a political organizer. And eventually I put myself out there as a candidate to run for election. And right now I am actually representative elect. It makes me very, very proud to say that. I am representative elect Jodi Newell for Cheshire 4, representing Cheshire 4, Keenan, New Hampshire. And I'm very, very proud of that. But it's not just me. That's the amazing part. Because of the work and the organizing and all of this that went into this work, it wasn't just me. I was elected with 9 other radical progressives, amazing, outspoken, doing the work, hitting the streets, knocking on doors, and speaking to people's actual issues that are happening in their life, the effects of these policies that are actually affecting people in their lives. So I got to be one of those people. I am so amazingly happy to be one of those people who is endorsed by Rights and Democracy. I'm very much looking forward to how we move forward in co-governance, working along with Rights and Democracy, the very people who knocked on those doors, the very people who got us to where we are, and co-governing and working together with everybody there to pass progressive policies that actually impact people in their lives. Pass it back to Ash.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jodi. That's so powerful. We're going to hear from another one of our progressive champions, State Representative Abraham Aiyash from the great state of Michigan. Welcome, Abe.
Thank you for having me. It is good to be with my movement family here with People's Action. So, we had a pretty historic week in Michigan when the trends were telling us that this was going to be a red wave, like many people on this call mentioned. We actually put up the first Democratic trifecta in 40 years, only the third in the last 100 years. And I want to point out that the 56th seat, which is the seat that got us to majority, was a friend of ours who is in a movement politics, who comes from that background, who understands the work and the urgency, someone who boldly fought to ensure that undocumented people would have driver's licenses here in the state of Michigan. So make no mistake, it was movement politics that got us here. But as we think about what happened last Tuesday in Michigan, we have to ask ourselves what happened to lead to that point. Now, we know that elections are simply punctuation marks. It's part of a broader story in our fight for greater justice. And this was something that we had spent years fighting for, whether it was a citizen-led ballot initiative that allowed redistricting to be decided by an independent commission, that allowed for the first time ever non-politician drawn maps. That is what got us to this moment. It was the work of organizers in that moment. And then when we think about what happened with Roe, we restored Roe in Michigan and enshrined a woman's right to choose in our state constitution. And this was done in spite of our politicians and our establishment saying, this may not be the best idea to push this right now. This is not the smartest thing to do. And then when the Dobbs hit, they said, thank you so much, organizers, for actually fighting to get this on the ballot. So people on the ground know the pulse and know what ticks and what makes people move. And now we have an opportunity here in Michigan to ensure that we are pushing a people's agenda in a democratic trifecta. 40 years of neglect of our Black and Brown communities can finally be addressed, but we have to push our elected officials forward. Now, last Thursday, I was elected by my colleagues to serve as majority floor leader here in the Michigan legislature, which means they know that you all will have a movement champion in the Michigan House. I just want to make sure that we have more people involved and that we are actually going to co-govern, pushing a progressive agenda forward and recognizing that we need all of you to reach out to our elected officials to make sure that we are pushing that work. And it is the organizations like Michigan People's Campaign and Michigan United, alongside People's Action, that are helping move this agenda. They are the ones who fought when emergency management. We went and protested in lame duck when they tried to install things like right to work, which was an arcane, terrible law that would take away someone's right to organize. We saw them fight when they tried to strip away our access to clean, affordable water and still installing emergency management, which led to the Flint water crisis. Michigan People's Campaign was at the forefront in all of that work. And now it's time for us to continue to build. I think Michigan is the model for the Midwest of how we can get stuff done when you have Black and brown organizers and working poor all across the state fighting for social, economic, and environmental justice. And it is my hope in state government that we can actually move this along in to the 2023-2024 session and recognize that majorities are earned, and that once you keep them, or once you get them, to keep them, you must show the people that you are delivering a bold, robust agenda. And that is my hope here in the great state of Michigan. And I am proud to co-govern with so many of my friends here in People's Action and Michigan People's Campaign. I actually remember working with Marta many, many years ago, pre-COVID actually, around how we can formulate a movement politics and co-governing initiative. And now it's kind of crazy to think that I'll be serving as a majority leader to help drive and set up the agenda here in the Michigan House. So know that I'll be having meetings with so many of you in this work, and that you are going to help me figure out what is the best thing to push and what is the things we need to make sure our Democratic friends have a little bit more courage in this moment. But I'd be remiss to say, had it not been the work that got the organizers on the ground to get the redistricting commission put in on the ballot, and then additionally restoring Roe and enshrining it in our state constitution, I would not be calling myself a majority floor leader elect here in the state of Michigan. So it is because of movement politics, and I'm forever grateful for that work. Thank you.
Yo, thank you so much. That's so inspiring to hear about all the incredible work that you're doing, that you're getting ready to do, the foundation that we had laid together for years to make this possible. Okay, so we've been talking here a lot about winning, and it feels great and it's good to celebrate. And also, we didn't win everything, right? Corporations and the elite continue to try to stack the cards against us. So it's all about continuing to organize and having a long-term strategy and a plan. So to help us make sense of some of our losses and the years of organizing that we have to build on in order to win bigger in the long term, I'm excited to bring up Robert Craig, the Executive Director of Citizen Action of Wisconsin. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks, Marta, and thanks everyone for being here. So when we do this kind of work, we're gone, particularly when we have close margins like we do in the battleground of battleground states, Wisconsin, we're going to have disappointments, and we have to build off of those, and we need to see what the advances were. So at Citizen Action Wisconsin, our own member, former board member, still current member, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, lost a very narrow Senate race against MAGA insurrectionist Senator Ron Johnson, 27,000 votes. And it was an amazing step to have someone who's one of us that we've known before he had his first organizing job in the movement, to actually have someone like that ascend to the level of being the U.S. Senate nominee. Though I will tell you, it's a lot harder to work with U.S. Senate campaign than a state legislative race. So that's a learning that we need to keep having. And there was an avalanche of absolutely of dark money from interested billionaires of the most racist character on crime, like Attorney General Ellison was referring to when he in his presentation. And that it flipped just a very small number of swing voters. There are very few swing voters left in Wisconsin, but with margins this tight, it was enough to flip the balance. So it's very disappointing, but we're going to have those disappointments when we're up against this kind of onslaught from the anti-democratic forces and the forces of the ultra-rich in our society. Now, having said that, there were advances here. One of the reasons that we helped Mandela Barnes get much closer through deep canvassing, a very large-scale deep canvass by phone and by door, and we talked to a huge number of people, and we had a 14.5% move rate. What that tells you is this works, that this is the answer to this kind of dog whistle politics and this fear-mongering and division. Once you talk to people, and what we need to do is start earlier, get broader, and talk to more people. So this is the answer to this is organizing, and this whole case proves that organizing works. Now, we had other victories. State Senator Jeff Smith, a former organizer for Citizen Action, the top Republican target in a rural district, and rural areas continue to move towards the right in this election. He won re-election, and we did a huge amount of work in his race, and he actually talked to people and was deeply grounded in the rural communities he represents. So we can push against this, even in areas we're not supposed to be able to win, if we actually talk to people. And I'll just close with this. We have a narrative we need to push back on that comes from very moderate wing of the party. Governor Evers, who's very moderate, he won re-election when Manila Barnes narrowly lost, and the rap from centrists is that Evers won because he was more centrist. What that ignores is very few swing voters determined the small margin U.S. Senate race, but there was very high turnout, and that was brought about in part by Mandela's campaign and by our work and the excitement he created. So the centrists need to understand, if they get their wish and they have two centrist candidates on the top of the ticket, they all lose. We also reelected a centrist attorney general. So we understand that inspiring people, talking to them, giving them something to actually vote for is critical. We can't lose that in this moment. We need to build on all of our successes. So let me hand it all back to Marta.
Thank you so much. Really well put, Robert. Thank you. And now I want to hear from another Robert, a brilliant organizer and one of my personal favorite progressive champions of all time, Illinois Senator Robert Peters. Pew, 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 pew.
Thanks, Marta. Marta and I are like friends. We go way back. Before I was a state senator, I was an organizer with the People's Lobby, and I did work with the movement governing team at People's Action. But I'm State Senator Robert Peters of the 13th District in Illinois, and I'm chair of the Illinois Senate Black Caucus. And as I said, I was an organizer before I was a state senator, and I've been doing work with People's Action for 6-7 years now. But I'm also someone who helped start the Coalition to End Money Bond here in Illinois. And so I can attest to what the other Robert said, which is organizing works, and broad-based organizing, as in you can't just do it in the city, you can't just do it in the suburbs, and you got to do it all over the state, particularly here in Illinois. That works. In January of 2021, we passed a historic Black Caucus pillar, a modern-day civil rights bill called the Safety Act. And in that, we passed a bill that ended cash bail. I thought when I started with that coalition, it would take us 15 years to pass such a bill. But due to organization, due to meeting the moment, we were able to get that done in 5 years. But that bill was on the ballot this November. The far right spent over $100 million attacking the Black Caucus and attacking the coalition. They sent fake newspapers across the state. They went on TV across the state. They said it was the purge. It became a whole national story. They said it would be the end of days. And at the end of the day, we're still here. And the only purge that happened is that Republican leadership has changed over. In Illinois, we are committed to electing people who are involved in co-governing, who organize with organizations, who understand governing power. And unlike New York, just want to say that unlike New York, we have a governor and a speaker that sided with organizers in defending this bill. They called out the right, they fought misinformation, and they lifted up voices of the coalition. After all these attacks, after $100 million, after all the bullshit that was thrown our way, because of the organization and because we grew with so much power in this state, that the progressive movement has champions in the House and in the Senate, that the governor felt compelled to stand on the right side here, unlike other parts of the country. The speaker went out and spoke at a city club, which is an important, prestigious place, and attacked Republicans for running on tough on crime politics because they were too scared to talk about what they were really going to do to people, talk about the brutal things that they're going to do. Illinois is a standout state when it comes to choice. We're a state that literally when unionization is happening, we have made it a constitutional amendment, constitutionally protected to collectively bargain. We're the first state in the country to do that. Republicans, they used racism and tough on crime fear to try to get into power to undermine the progressive gains that we made. And that is again due to organization. And so we fought back to the point where actually we saw our majorities grow. We have a super majority. We went from 74 people to 78 people in the House out of 119 people. In the Senate, we had 41 members out of 59. We're now at 40 out of 59. And we kept the governor's office, and we won every constitutional every constitutional seat was protected. And this is because people ran on the progressive policies we accomplished. They didn't run away. They didn't lean into the tough on crime bullshit. That we bucked the trend that you saw in New York. But I would like also to say that we have a huge fight ahead of us. We are in a better shape, but it's a huge fight. The right's not going to give up. We have states attorneys that are suing across the state as if they're treating the end of cash bail like Obamacare. And so when we think about this, the only way we're going to be able to fight back against this, the only way we're going to keep this going is in deeply rooted organization. The only way we're going to make this really happen and expand it is by getting people, leaders from that organization into governing power. And the only way that you can actually keep going in terms of in government is because you are co-governing, that you see yourself as an organizer under the dome, not just outside the dome. And so I'm proud to be someone who comes from the People's Lobby. I'm proud to be someone who comes from the coalition. I always say the coalition made me, just as my sort of story of being attached to this tough on crime history made me. And that I am always grateful to be part of a movement governing team that we see at People's Action. An organization driven by a vision, not just looking at the past, but saying what the next 40 years will look like. And so all I know here in Illinois, we are a model that I will brag about each and every day, where we have come from as a state, from Bruce Rauner, who is trying to mimic Scott Walker and Sam Brownback, to having a billionaire governor who says, I'm going to run on progressive policies and is going to tie themselves to a movement. But we have a lot of work left to do. And I know that when we organize together and being part of this movement and being part of this organization, we'll be able to continue to fight back and push forward and get more progressive policies done. So thank you.
Heck yeah, when we fight, we win. That's right. Thank you so much, Senator. This is really more than just about getting elected and winning on election day. It's about finding people to govern that breathe our air and drink our water. Oh, well, yins are in for a treat now because we have Allegheny County's own Representative Sara Innamorato up next to talk about the gains that we've made in Western PA. Welcome.
Hey folks, yes, there is another city in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. You know, the world doesn't revolve around Philly as much as I'd like to believe that. And I am so excited because this year I am entering a majority for the first time. Y'all, it has been a long 4 years in the Pennsylvania State House in the minority, and it's thanks to the work like Ashley and folks across Pennsylvania who helped us win that very narrow majority. So I was first elected in 2018. And I like to say, like, I'm not a normal politician. I didn't have I didn't know what organizing was. I didn't know any politicians. I was working in the nonprofit space. I was working on weekends at a coffee shop down the street from me when I was running for office. But I think on this call, there are a lot of people who have that story. And so I want to thank People's Action for normalizing electing working people. I think it's an amazing, amazing thing. It's great for our government because government is a reflection of ourselves and our values. And we need regular people who have lived experiences, who've been close to the pain in office. And I'm proud to be a part of that. And I think we talk a lot about progressive policies, but I'm going to talk a little bit about progressive politics, right? When I've been through week-long training with People's Action. I know to build power, we need to organize people and money, but I also know that we can share that people and that money. When I ran in 2018, I ran with my sister rep, Summer Lee, who we just elected to Congress as the first Black woman ever from Pennsylvania. And the year of our Lord, 2022. But we collaborated, we raised money together, we shared volunteers, we shared a platform, we ran a slate. Politicking can be about sharing with one another. To me, progressive politicking is about building trust with the people that we're running to represent. Just like Jodi and Marta shared their personal stories. When I went out there and I talked about, when I was on the doors, I was talking to people about how I lost my dad to the opioid epidemic. I was talking about what it meant to be the first person to put myself through school in my family and graduate with a mountain of debt at peak recession. And, I know what it's like for hospital bills to show up and not know how you're going to pay them. And I think that builds that trust and understanding with our neighbors. And it's also about showing up for our neighbors. During the pandemic, we made sure that we would answer and return every phone call, every request for help for unemployment. And when I knew my friends in the restaurant industry and nightlife industry were suffering, we actually went out and we raised money so that we could give cash grants to restaurant workers because unemployment was not enough. And that's what happens when we elect regular people to office. They show up for one another, and they show that we can actually build power together. And one of the major things that I did when I was running for office was talking about what was going on in my neighborhood. So I live in Pittsburgh. I live in a neighborhood called Lawrenceville. It's one of the most rapidly gentrifying areas in the nation. So housing justice was huge for me. I watched so many of my neighbors lose their home. I watched them lose their homes while, we erected houses that now go for $500,000, which probably sounds cheap in some places, but it was very expensive for Pittsburgh. And it was through that work of bringing people together and talking about housing policy that I was able to write a bill called the Whole Home Repairs. And we partnered with housing justice organizers. We partnered with climate activists. We partnered with Senator Saval and Rep. Krajewski out in Philadelphia because though we have a healthy competition, we do still work together. And in the minority, we were able to pass a bill that put $125 million into helping low-income, working-class people repair their homes. And that was because we organized across the state. We used policy to build movement and to organize not only outside with our neighbors in our communities, but also in the halls of Harrisburg. And we were able to pass that bill bipartisanly. And now we are going to make a huge impact on people's lives. And that's because of folks coming together. And that's because of folks sharing their pain. And that's because of folks looking out for one another. And what will stick with me is that when we did our press conference in Pittsburgh, we had it in front of Miss Monica Griffin's house. And she is 82 years old and stands at a mighty 4'7". And she talked about what that bill would mean to her and her ability to stay in a neighborhood that she had called home her entire life. And that's what movements are about. Movements require people. And we build multiracial, multi-generational, gender diverse movements that cross religious boundaries, cross geographical lines. And I'm so excited to see what we can build together in our narrow majority in the House of Representatives here in Pennsylvania, and what we can do across this nation every year, every cycle, at every level of government. I know we're just getting started.
Hell yeah, it's a narrow majority now, but we're going to spread that out. We are ending up in the history books, folks. Shout out to Sara Innamorato and all of the incredible local and state level people's champions who won because of the truly people-powered campaigns that they ran. Folks like Leah Webb in upstate New York, who had a tough fight but won with a powerful organization like Citizen Action in New York that they built over the last 3 decades. And shout out to the fabulous folks of the Arkansas Citizens First Congress who defeated a ballot measure, issue 2, boom, to ensure that the people will rule by preserving their ability to make important decisions through ballot initiatives. And it's trailblazer organizations like that have been here for decades that are really helping newer organizations across the country really see our true potential for power building. So since we're all a part of this big People's Action family, I am glad we're going to hear again from People's Action's Executive Director, Sulma Arias.
Wow, I cannot believe almost a whole hour has gone by. I am so inspired. What a great night. I don't even have words. I mean, the whole this whole night, as I hear speaker after speaker, powerful, go up and just share tonight. I can't help to think about a woman by the name of Ashley Esposito. This is a woman I don't know, I've never met her, but on the day after election night, I was on a plane back to Kansas, to Wichita, and this message came in through a public channel that we have here at People's Action, and Ashley said something along the lines of, I took a training from you all, a candidate training from you all 2 years ago. And today I run for a school board election in Baltimore, Maryland, and won. And in the midst of everything that was going on that day, I took that message, I took a screenshot of it, and I just held it close to my heart, because that's what this is all about. This is about inspiring people. This is about winning hearts and winning minds, and reminding people that the collective power of us, the collective power of people to decide what we want for our future, what we want for our children, for our grandchildren, that is what this is all about. We get so caught up in elections, and we have the other side throw tons of money at it and a bunch of lies. But at the end of the day, when we realize in our communities, when we organize, when we have those deep canvas conversations that Marta was talking about, which is really all about, deep canvas is really about what we call community organizing. It's about curiosity. It's about making another person feel seen and heard. And that's what we do. And then the amount of calls that we had, that is incredible. All of you who participated, who picked up the phone for the first time and called, who volunteered, all the organizers and trainers out there, all the volunteers who helped to move something in this last 2 years since the last 2020 election, in this midterms. Thank you. You did this. You did this. You got us here tonight. And that is so inspiring and so incredible. That reminds me, and should remind all of us, that we can do this. We can rise above the cynicism. We can rise above all the hate and the doubt, and we can win. We can win when we do it together, and we can build the kind of democracy that we all deserve and we need. So here at People's Action, we are launching what we call an organizing revival, and we're building a bigger tent. We are building a bigger tent to move towards 2024, when we can bring millions of people to be inspired, just like tonight, and all of you, we're moving towards a bigger we, so that we can win in 2024. So today, when we started this, we said, let's see what we learn out of the midterm elections, so that we can apply the learnings and the takeaways to 2024. And here we are. Tonight we're celebrating. And what's next? What's next is all of us. What's next is you and the many people who volunteered to get us to where we are tonight. So what are we doing, and what do you need to do in order to be part of the organizer revival? There's a link moving in your screen that says join us. I want you to go and click on that link and join us tonight in order to build a bigger we, and to build in this exciting momentum to build towards 2024. We've got a lot of celebrating, we've got a lot of work to do, but we know we can do it when we do it out of love and out of a collective power building, when winning means winning people and building a bigger we. I was so inspired by Jodi telling us about this important work. So what I want to do, and that amazing story, Jodi, I'm so inspired by your work, by your story. Thank you for joining us tonight. as we do and finalize, I'm going to turn it back to you, Jodi, to do a final call to action, which is a pressing issue that we need to work on tonight. And I'm going to ask all of you to join us in this next call to action that Jodi's going to lead us through. Jodi, please take us to the call to action.
Thank you so much, Soma. We do this work, and listen, I am pumped up. I am amped up. We are on fire. Okay. Like I feel that, but I just for a second, I want to bring it back to square. All right. Because I told you my story about how I came into this activism. It's because of a loss, right? We all feel that deep connection. And I'm hoping that y'all can resonate with me when I give this call to action so that you can understand exactly where this is coming from. And I hope and I pray that all of you take action today. All right. Because no matter what you look like or where you live, we all want to see our loved ones live long, fulfilling lives. But when it comes to the overdose crisis ravaging our communities, a few greedy politicians continue to criminalize, to promote criminalization over care. We're fighting to change that by passing the Mainstreaming Addiction Act, which would remove the stigma-based barrier to treatment for folks with opioid use disorder. The MAD Act will increase access to buprenorphine. Took me a long time to figure out how to say that word, but I got it now. Buprenorphine. It's a medication-assisted treatment, which is the most effective form of treatment for folks with opioid use disorder. So right now, over the past 2 years, we have built strong bipartisan support for the MAD Act, and we're able to move it through the House in June 2022. It stalled in the Senate, but we are now pushing for it in the to be included in the end of the year omnibus spending bill. And it's really, really important that we get people to support this. We need our entire People's Action and extended activist community to come together to really help us push this. It is so important. We have done so much work to get it to this point, and all I'm asking for you is to take a couple of very quick steps. So if you could join us to take this victory home for our people, please visit how do I do that then? I have the link and it's hard for me to explain it, but it's peoplesaction.ac/Matt. It's going to be somewhere. The link on your screen, please. The link on your screen. Sorry, y'all. I'm not great with the technology, but I'm trying. The point is, in the same way that I am terrible with technology, but I am trying to push you to do this thing, could you please take that step? It is absolutely so important. We have put so much work into this. It is amazing how far we have gotten. And I just implore you to please take that quick action to tell your congressional leaders to contact congressional leadership who are supposed to represent us all and ask that they ensure that the MAD Act is included in the final spending package that will be passed before the year's end. We're almost over the finish line. And with the impending change in congressional makeup, it's more important than ever to get this win. Keep an eye out for future invitations to take action on this. And thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to Marta.
Thank you so much, Jodi. Do the action, y'all. It'll take a couple seconds and it can literally save people's lives. And when we organize, we win, right? Our member organizations all across the country are doing the hard work all year round to create a world that's going to work for all of us, not just the wealthy few. Thanks to everybody who made phone calls, knocked on doors, even just voted. Thank you for saving democracy with us.
Oh, Marta, you're welcome. What's the least I could do? I just feel like celebrating with you all tonight. So thank you for coming out. Thank you to Marta and Soma and everybody that came out. And thank you to you. We can't do this work without you. So I will let Emily McNally close us out with some beautiful music. Good night.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily McNally. I am a singer-songwriter and a People's Action volunteer. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who has dedicated their time and energy towards the People's Action movement this year. I really do believe that a better future is one where we center community, and the People's Action community is a really, really special one. Your dedication towards progressive values and the fight for that is really inspiring to me and gives me a lot of hope. And so I wanted to sing this song for you. It's an original that I wrote that is about hope for a better tomorrow through the lens of the metaphor of gardening, which is a task that can be tedious and laborious and require a lot of patience and perseverance, but ultimately is super necessary, and the rewards of which are beautiful and plentiful and wonderful, something that you might know a little bit about. And so this is The Gardener. Will you sit with me, watch my garden grow? Look at how the petals open up, even after all this snow. I know that for a while now, skies have been gray, but what is life without a little rain? And someday the sun is gonna shine in my eyes again. There are gonna be blue skies again. I will be alright from my roots to my stem, so that I can be beautiful for you. I am not a scientist, I am not a saint. I am just a gardener who's got too much on their plate. But once we get to work and clear those pesky weeds away, I will make sure that you are safe. And someday the sun is gonna shine in my eyes again. There are gonna be blue skies again. I will be alright from my roots to my stem, so that I can be beautiful for you. Petals, you can pick them off. I love you's from, I love you not. Someday the sun is gonna shine in my eyes again. There are gonna be blue skies again. I will be alright from my roots to my stem, so that I can be beautiful for you, beautiful for you. Thank you so much. Hi everybody, my name is Emily McNally. I am a singer-songwriter and a People's Action volunteer. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who has dedicated their time and energy towards the People's Action movement this year. I really do believe that a better future is one where we center community, and the People's Action community is a really, really special one. Your dedication towards progressive values and the fight for that is really inspiring to me and gives me a lot of hope. And so I wanted to sing this song for you. It's an original that I wrote that is about hope for a better tomorrow.